Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hey, it's like I didn't move. Well, because I didn't. Welcome to part two of the Media Boat Podcast's adventure into the Best Picture winners of the last 16 years. This is the Media Boat Podcast. My name is Matt, and yes, if you watched the first video, you know what to expect. We are ranking through tournament all the Best Picture winners in the Oscars for the last 16 years to determine what is the best Picture. Last time we started with the first four films, which we called Part 1, The Genre Breakers. And we have moved them on to the next round. Parasite took it over Everything Everywhere All at Once. The Artist took it over Birdman. So both of those movies move on to round two. But today, for this video, we're going to be moving on from films that break genres to films that tell social commentary and human stories. Movies with a point, movies with a message, movies that are trying to do something beyond entertain. I mean, a lot of these movies are trying to do something beyond entertaining, but for the best intensive purposes, let's just follow me here. These are special movies that have a lot of meaning to people, and for various reasons. But are some better than others is always the question. So, without any further ado, let's move on. Let me click over to our bracket here, our live bracket. As you can see, we have two matchups to cover. We're in round parts 3 and 4 over here. And yeah, films that have a message. So let's talk about these messages in the first two films. CODA, the winner from 2021, and Nomadland, the winner of the year before in 2020. Oh boy, so this is a weird time for Oscar, as you may have told from the years of this. They both are kind of either right before or during the COVID-19 pandemic, kind of the height of them. And so they both take place in this weird, zone where movies were not being distributed in the same way, that different kinds of movies were being funded, and that our reaction to the movies were painted and kind of colored by our experience during the COVID scare. So yeah, they both kind of have that kind of tinge to them. And at the same time, they're also like the genre, like the category that I mentioned, have a broader message that they're trying to convey. One, very obviously about the deaf community and what it means to be in a family with deaf people when you are not one of them, and what that means in the struggle between that relationship. And then the other film is about, is about in a lot of ways labor and expectations of labor and being able to escape that on your own terms and what that means and who can and who can't and why you choose that life. Both are really fascinating movies. I liked both of these movies, maybe one more than the other. Let's talk about the numbers real quick. So CODA, only a 72 on Metacritic. This is one of the lower ranked films on this list. I think critically, it got a mixed response because of, I think a lot of people saw it as kind of predictable and a little bit too cheesy, corny, I guess you could say. I definitely wasn't one of them, but I could definitely read the film that way, and I could see why somebody would. As for box office, this is the weirdest one on this list box office wise because of how it was released. So there is a rule that in order to be recognized by the Academy in any year, you have to have some sort of theatrical release. So that limits the ability of streaming companies to market their movie for Oscar buzz. CODA is a weird exception because of the year that it came out. They were a bit more lenient in the 21 awards with the amount of time that they had to be in a theater. So I believe the theater time was extremely limited for CODA, leading to a disappointing $2.2 million worldwide. That's it. This, of course, does not include streaming numbers. I'm sure a lot of people watch this on Apple TV, where it's streamed. And Apple TV, being the main financier and distributor of this film, also limits its ability to be in theaters wide. So this is the lowest grossing of this list, and adjusted for inflation is probably the lowest grossing film to ever win Best Picture. But again, context matters, and it's not necessarily CODA's fault that those numbers were so small. Moving on to Nomadland, and this will show you how things only minorly changed from just a year apart. It made $39.5 million, still one of the lowest box office grosses of this list. It is second only to CODA. I think that that's more about it being just a naturally limited release kind of art house movie, as opposed to a big, bigger profile tentpole release. But still, kind of interesting to see, and like really colors the era in which it existed. It didn't have that much runway to be in theaters after its release. And as for Metacritic for Nomadland, an 88, which is, again, respectable. Not the best on this list. It doesn't get into the 90s range, but pretty well liked in its release. And yeah, and that kind of honestly, the numbers kind of tell the story between these two. I have seen both of these films, and generally speaking, CODA has some things that are really cool about it. I think obviously the performances are great. Troy Kotsur especially does an amazing job. Just is able to convey so much with ASL that you almost forget sometimes watching the movie that he's speaking ASL, like that he's communicating via it. It just he has so much character in his face. He has so much emotion in his body language that it just really comes through, and it feels like any other Best Actor performance. It's just stellar. As for the rest of it, I mean, you get what you get in this movie. It's very much what you think that this movie is going to be, and it doesn't really go outside of that expectation. It's entertaining, it's funny at some points, but it didn't really stick with me in a lot of ways. Whereas Nomadland, I was thinking about Nomadland for a while. I mean, what do we need to say about Frances McDormand? She's one of the best actors in our timeline, our lifetime. She's just stellar in everything she does, and this is a tour de force. Again, she does so much in this film, from every person she has to communicate with on all sides of the spectrum, whether it's strangers, whether it's neighbors, whether it's family. There's just so much going on in her performance that it's really, really touching and moving. And yeah, it just has so much to say about the current state of the economy and trying to break free of it. And trying to break free and make your own life into something for yourself. And not getting bogged down in other things, but still being a caring individual. I think despite CODA being very much about a community that, yes, does have its difficulties interacting with the world, Nomadland felt more of the time. It felt more in tune with where culture was. Not that CODA didn't. I think one of the interesting things that has happened post CODA is that the visibility of ASL interpreters and ASL community has really ticked up. I can't go anywhere without having there's signing happening. There's a signing version of the Oscars apparently that aired last night that you can find on YouTube. It's really cool, and I feel like CODA is part of the reason why that has exploded, and it's great. I have a job now where I have to be in tune with the changing landscape of interacting with people with disabilities, and now that I'm kind of in it and I'm seeing it through my work, it's really important that that's available. You can't just settle on subtitles. So many people rely on ASL, and it's the unique interpretation of language that it can offer. someone beyond just reading words. It's very important. And yeah, CODA and movies like it and TV shows like it that have that representation did do a lot to move the needle on that. But Nomadland is, I think, a more fascinating story. I think it's a better story. I think it's a more fascinating portrait of a person. And because of that, it feels more poignant to me. And again, I know I said at the beginning of the top video that I'm not going to necessarily be able to use my own opinion a lot of the time here. But here's one of the ones that I can. And yeah, I'm going to say I think Nomadland probably bests CODA. And it's not just that because the numbers are that way. It's just because it just feels right, you know? So Nomadland moves on to round 2. Next up, our next matchup is a little bit more complicated. We have Moonlight, the winner from 2016, and Slumdog Millionaire, the winner from way back in 2008. Oh boy, I don't really know where to start. This is going to be one of the tough ones for me. I have not seen Slumdog Millionaire. I understand that it's a feel-good film. I understand that a lot of people love it. I understand that it's got a complicated relationship with the Indian culture that it represents. And I also understand that it's very of its time. But hey, then there's Moonlight, which is also not a stranger to controversy. Of course, it is the movie that almost didn't win Best Picture when the wrong envelope was read and La La Land was the prospective winner. And of course, that was corrected and hijinks ensued. But yeah, they're very, very different movies here. But in a similar way to our first matchup, Everything Everywhere All at Once and Parasite, they both do have one thing in common, which is they are not, thankfully, stories, just no more stories about Hollywood or stories about white people. They are about minorities. They're about people who don't get a whole lot of representation on the Oscar stage. So very cool to have both of them here, and it sucks that we have to take one out for the other. I did not, again, make these matchups. Mike did. Blame him. All right, so let's start with the numbers. Moonlight in 2016 has a amazing 99 on Metacritic. It is the highest rated of these Best Pictures, of these 16. Nothing else can beat it, critically. However, box office-wise, it's pretty low. $65.2 million worldwide. Not obviously a movie that, unfortunately, will have a lot of play outside the American audience. It's very hard to market, probably, in a foreign market, unfortunately. Even though it's a pretty universal story, coming-of-age story. So yeah, it's a little disappointing to see the number be as low as it is. Meanwhile, Slumdog Millionaire, coming out, well, a while prior, in 2008, enjoyed the more fruitful movie-going public at the time, as well as it enjoyed the higher number of other countries being able to watch it. It was well distributed. So Slumdog Millionaire is an 84 on Metacritic. Not too high, but not the lowest. And $378.4 million worldwide box office, which, yeah, pretty good, especially considering some of the numbers we've read off recently. So yeah, the numbers tell a story, I think, more about the situation that the movie business was in 2008, as opposed to a judgment on Moonlight. I think that's important to remember. But nevertheless, they're hard movies to compare. I really loved Moonlight when it came out. I thought it was an excellent movie. I wanted it to win Best Picture, and I'm glad that it did. It's extremely touching. It's extremely moving. The performances are amazing. Slumdog Millionaire I haven't seen, but I understand that it's a little bit lighter in tone. Just gonna warn to guess there. That goes a long way for a lot of people, but is it as poignant? And I think that's where it gets tricky. I also understand that Slumdog Millionaire, like I kind of briefly addressed earlier, has its share of controversy. Apparently some people reviewing it in India saw it as a little cliche, a little stereotypical of their people, and thus it's got a complicated legacy. It also, of course, has its ties into Bollywood. It has its ties into a very specific era of television, of course, with the Millionaire connection. Whereas Moonlight is a little less tied to pop culture and the context of the time in which it came out. I feel like my gut is erring towards Moonlight as the more timeless film, as the higher reviewed film, and yeah, the numbers really support this, except for box office. That's the one thing that's keeping me from being like, absolutely Moonlight here, but I still feel like it wins. I feel like it just has a little bit of an advantage over something as broad, more broad at least, as Slumdog Millionaire. So I think it is Moonlight's time. All right, so Moonlight moves on to round 2, which means we have our first half of round 2, and we have 4 more matchups after this to get through. So here's the schedule, folks. That is it for this week. But we have 2 more episodes before we go for the. Actually, I might have to do more here. 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7. Wait, uh-oh. Yeah, no, that's right. So, I guess I'm doing 4 more next week in order to catch up. So I will do the full second half of this. I should have just done this in one video, I guess. Oh well. So I'll do the full second half of this next week. So you'll be able to, tune in for the rest of this first round. Then so that'll be up on the 19th, those 2 videos. And then the 26th, we'll go through round 2, the 4 matchups in round 2. And then Mike and I will join each other for the 31st and decide a final winner. Oh, wait, no. Oh, shoot. Okay. I guess I need to do more videos than that. All right, well, I'll figure it out. That's for another day. But thanks for joining us for these little shorties. Yeah, we will be back soon with another edition of this series, where we will continue these matchups, including Green Book versus 12 Years a Slave. I bet you know which one's going to win that one. No surprises here. And then Argo versus The King's Speech. That's a good one. The Shape of Water versus Spotlight. And The Hurt Locker versus No Country for Old Men. So look forward to all those matchups and more fun next time here on the Media Boat Podcast, March Madness 2024, Best Picture Face-Off. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.